Mr. Hamilton, you may call your next witness.
At this point, we call Noah Kunin, please.
Swear that the testimony you give here will be true, so help you God?
I do.
Okay. Please get settled in the witness stand. Once you're settled, I'm going to ask you to state your full name and spell it for the record.
And for the court, the exhibit number is F2094.
My name is Noah Kunin. That's Kunin.
Good morning, Mr. Kunin. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Sure.
Can you please give us your current residence address, please?
My current residence is 807 24th Avenue, Northeast Minneapolis, Minnesota.
And how long have you lived at that address?
Just a few months, I believe. I think I was fully moved in sometime between November and December.
All right, so let me
Shortly after the election.
Let's back up to January of 2007. How many places have you lived since that time?
Since January of 2000, I think at least 5.
At least 5 times.
Yeah.
And I understand one of the residence addresses you lived at was near the bridge that collapsed?
Yes, it was the closest residence to the bridge, actually, at the time of its collapse.
And is that the reason that you moved?
Initially, yeah. We were removed from that location. We were present at the location when the bridge collapsed. Security forces moved us out. We were allowed back in twice, and then it was torn down. And so kept moving, kept trying to settle into a new place after that.
Okay, that was your legal residence at the time?
At the time, yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, did you cast a ballot in the November 2008 general election?
I did.
You voted by absentee ballot?
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to ask you the same questions about your qualifications to cast that ballot. At the time, in November of 2008, were you a resident of the state of Minnesota?
I was.
And had you lived in the state of Minnesota for at least 20 days prior to November 4, 2008?
I did.
And are you a citizen of the United States?
I am.
And were you in November of 2008?
Yes.
All right. And were you at least 18 years of age in November 4, 2008?
Correct.
And has your right to vote ever been removed or suspended or revoked by any court for any reason?
No, it has not.
Okay, so as far as you know, you were fully entitled to participate and vote in the November 4, 2008 election?
Yes.
All right. Now I've handed you, or I've opened the book in front of you to exhibit F2094. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
And is that a copy of your absentee ballot application?
Indeed it is.
And does it bear your genuine signature?
Yes.
And is this your handwriting filling this form out?
This is my handwriting across the application.
Okay. And then if we look at page 2, is that a copy of your absentee ballot envelope?
Yes, this is a copy.
And does that bear your handwriting and signature at the top under the voter information?
That's me as well.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of exhibit F2094.
F2094 is received.
All right, looking first at the absentee ballot application form, you filled that out, I gather, for the purpose of obtaining an absentee ballot.
I did.
Okay. And the address that you provided there is 3745 Wellington Lane?
That's my permanent address at the time.
This was your legal residence at the time that you completed this absentee ballot application?
Correct. This was my legal
But
residence.
hold on.
Sustain.
Was that your legal residence at the time?
Yes, it was.
All right, thank you. All right, after filling out this form, did you thereafter receive a copy of an absentee ballot envelope?
I did.
Okay. And did you vote?
Yep.
By filling out the little ovals?
I filled out all the ovals,
All
for
the
the
ovals.
exception of some judge races on the back.
I see. And then when you're done voting, you put it back inside the envelope
Yes.
and sealed it up?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at that envelope if we might. That's the second page of exhibit 2094. I see the name of the witness is Scott Hartman. Who is Mr. Hartman?
I've known Scott since sophomore year of high school. He's also been a frequent roommate of mine, both during college and afterwards.
Okay, do you know if Mr. Hartman is a registered voter?
That was the testimony he gave me at the time of signing, yes, as a registered voter.
Overruled.
Okay, so you asked Mr. Hartman to be your witness?
Yes.
Okay. And now there's also a voucher here. Can you explain why you had that part filled in?
I can. It's a little extensive, so if I need to shorten it, let me know. I initially wanted to render my absentee ballot application and vote in person at the Hennepin County seat in Minneapolis. Not only was I moving around a lot in the previous year, I was moving around a lot during 2008 because I was covering the 2008 presidential election. I filled out change of address forms, I had my driver's license updated. I had taken several actions that I knew had modified my registration.
I'll do that. And if I might ask the witness to slow down a little bit,
Sure.
The court reporter's gonna.
No
burn up.
problem.
Okay, so you'd been traveling a fair bit during 2008, is that true?
That's correct.
Okay. And so you wanted to vote in person, absentee?
Yes.
Okay, so tell us how you did that.
I went to the Hennepin County Service Center in Minneapolis.
And who did you speak with there?
They had officials. I went to the information desk. They directed me to Hennepin County officials where absentee balloting was taking place.
Okay, and did you explain to them your circumstances?
Correct.
Did you tell them that you'd been moving?
Correct.
And you asked them what to do?
Correct.
Okay, and then what did they say?
They said I needed to register there and commit the application, and then I could vote.
Okay, so let me stop you there. At the time that you did that, what was your residence address?
My permanent residence, legal residence, was 3745 Willington Lane North, Plymouth, Minnesota, 55441.
Okay, and did you tell the election officials at Hennepin County that that was your legal address?
I don't believe I told them. They handed me the application and I wrote it down.
Okay, and that's the absentee ballot application.
Correct.
And can you tell us the date on which this occurred?
I believe this occurred on the 9th, and yes, that's when I signed, on the 9th of October.
Okay, and so they provided you this form in response to your question about how do I go about voting absentee ballot?
Right, correct.
Okay, and you filled out the form, and did you hand it right back to them, or did you mail it in?
The absentee ballot application form, I filled out in person.
Okay, and then gave it back to them?
They took it back, yes.
Okay. Now, I noticed that if the form is dated October 9, but it's stamped received by October 10.
Correct.
Do you know why that is?
I don't know why.
Okay.
No.
But you gave it one way or the other. You gave this form back to Hennepin County Elections Division.
Correct. They took this form from me at the counter on the 9th.
Okay. And did they give you the absentee ballot right then?
Yes, for a brief moment they did.
Okay. Can you explain what happened?
As they were handing me the absentee ballot, they had taken from me the application and a registration card. They then immediately took it back because apparently they had not yet glanced at my driver's license.
Okay. Let me stop you there. Did you fill out a voter registration card at the same time you filled out this absentee ballot application?
Yes.
And they asked you to?
I think I initiated it because I told them I'd filed a change of address earlier to get mail at a different address I was staying at and needed to re-register at the time.
Okay. So on or about October 9, you not only filled out an absentee ballot application, but you also filled out a new voter registration card.
Correct.
And then you turned it into Hennepin County.
Correct.
Okay. And then they started handing you an absentee ballot.
Right.
And then you said something about your driver's license. Can you explain?
At the time, only one service official was helping me. She then said, "What's wrong with your driver's license?" And there is, in fact, a typo that was introduced when the DMV printed on it on the face of the driver's license.
And what's the typographical error?
It's on the city line, actually. It says PLMS.
It says, I'm sorry?
On the city line of my driver's license, it reads PLMS, which I think they were trying to abbreviate something. That's not a city, though. The correct city that you reside in is Plymouth? The correct city I reside in is Plymouth. I think at that point they were trying to write MPLS for Minneapolis.
I see.
She then said that's not a valid ID. I can't give you this ballot.
Okay, and how did you respond?
That wasn't my understanding of the statute, and even if there was,
Sustained.
can you rephrase the question? Maybe I didn't hear
Sure,
the
how
question
did you
right.
respond to her?
I told her I don't think that's a reason why you can take back the ballot.
Okay, and how did that situation get resolved? What did she say?
There was a disagreement, and eventually either I requested or she, I don't recall, either a coworker or a supervisor to come in and help us resolve it.
Okay, and how was it resolved?
The compromise we reached was that they would instead take in my application and mail me the ballot, and they told me that I would need to get a voucher.
Okay. And you need to get a voucher because of the error in the printing of the city on your driver's license.
Correct. They needed certification.
And just so that we're all clear, the error in printing the driver's license was an error by the state of Minnesota.
The Department of Motor Vehicles, correct, yes.
What wasn't your mistake?
It was not my mistake. I would have not abbreviated it or written it like that.
Okay. All right. So they mailed you the ballot. And did you receive the ballot?
I did.
Okay. And then at the time you received the ballot, we already went over that you voted for the candidates by filling in the bubbles, and then you took the envelope or the ballot and put it inside the envelope.
I placed the ballot in the secrecy envelope and placed that in the exterior envelope.
Now at that point, did you fill out another voter registration card?
I do not have any recollection whether I did or did not.
But in any event, you'd already previously submitted a voter registration card when... I'm not finished with the question, but I'll rephrase, Your Honor.
Rephrase it.
Had you already turned in a voter registration card at the time that you submitted the ballot application?
Yes, in person.
Okay. So did you see any need to fill out another one?
No.
Okay. So now you received your ballot, you voted your ballot, and we're completing the envelope. Now, the Hennepin County elections official had advised you, in order to get around this typographical error on your driver's license, that you should get a voucher?
Yes, they told me to get a voucher.
Okay. And who'd you select as your voucher?
My mother.
Your mother. Is that Barbara Sable?
Correct.
And did she complete this and sign it?
Yes.
Okay. And then in addition, you had Mr. Hartman serve as your witness?
Correct.
All right, let's just do a little housekeeping here. If we look at the application and we look at the envelope, the address that appears on the absentee ballot application, the absentee ballot envelope, are both your permanent residence address, correct?
Correct.
And the name is the same on both?
Yes,
And both of them bear your genuine signature?
they do.
And then after completing all of that, I gather, well, what did you do with the ballot?
The entire absentee ballot package I placed in a mail receptacle at my local post office on Johnson Street.
Addressed to Hennepin County?
Correct. I mean, it had a self-addressed envelope with it, I believe.
At the time that you dropped that completed absentee ballot package into the postal service, did you believe you'd done everything necessary in order to ensure that your vote was counted?
Yes.
Was it important to you to have your vote counted?
Yes.
Other than this absentee ballot, did you vote in any other way in the November 4, 2008 general election?
I did not.
You didn't go down to the polls?
I was not in the state.
Didn't cast any other absentee
No.
ballots? You relied on the information provided to you by Hennepin County?
Yes.
And did you believe you'd followed the instructions that you'd been given?
I followed the instructions I was given by the counter official.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kunin.
Sure.
Your absentee ballot envelope shows the date of 10/31, which is getting pretty close to Election Day. Did you mail it that day?
No, I mailed it the next day, so it was quite close.
And you have no recollection of putting the registration card in with it? You may have or you may not have?
Correct. I do not have any direct recollection.
Okay, because you had already filled out a registration card,
Correct.
so really you would have had no reason to fill out another one, correct?
Correct. No. Yes.
Okay. And of course, you have been listening to this entire trial, have you not?
The entire trial.
Because you're the reporter from UpTake.org?
The UpTake.org. Correct.
Okay. And you've heard the testimony of the Secretary of State indicating that if your registration and your ballot are not together within the 20-day window, you're not registered. You understand that?
Back to the form of the question, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Yeah, it's my understanding you need to be registered in order to vote.
No. These are non-registered voter materials. You understand that?
I do.
Okay. Now, it's your belief that you had already registered at the desk, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And so that card's there someplace within the government, correct?
The last I saw of it was on October 9th when they took it back.
Okay. And you presume that they did with it what they should, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When your absentee ballot comes in like this, without a registration card with it, within the 20-day window, you know that you don't come under the exemption, correct?
Object to the form of the question calls for a legal conclusion.
Sustained.
Let's leave it this way. As far as you know, your registration document and your absentee ballot were separated from each other, correct?
To make sure I understood you correctly, my registration document, the registration card, was not included in this document, to my knowledge. Correct.
Okay. Had you voted in the state of Minnesota before?
I had.
And what was your address then?
I believe the last time I had voted would have been the 2006 general election, and I believe my address at the time would have been that address near the bridge. That would have been 119th Avenue South in Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55454
Okay.
at that point.
Where were you living in August of 2008?
In August of 2008, I think that was a transitional period. I might have been couch surfing. I might have been staying with Scott. I might have been staying at my parents' my mother's house as well. I don't recollect.
Well, everybody's got to be someplace.
Everyone would like to be someplace, and so would I, but both my work situation, financial situation didn't allow me to be in, one place for an extended period of time.
Where was the last, prior to August of 2008, where was your last established residence?
3745 Wellington Lane.
Well, didn't you live over by the bridge that collapsed a few years ago?
A few years ago, yes.
Okay. And then when you had to leave there, where did you move to?
The first place I moved to, the state actually put us in a hotel on Washington Avenue in Minneapolis. Well, sorry, I need to correct that. The first place we went to was 3745 Wellington Lane. We then, because both of our jobs were in Minneapolis or thereabouts, the state allowed us to move into a hotel room while they figured out what they were doing with our residents near the bridge. I then lived in some additional addresses in Minneapolis, and then it was getting really confusing, so I decided to establish my permanent address, again, at 3745 Wellington Lane North, for business purposes and also looking forward to the election.
But did you actually live there?
For periods of time, yes.
Well,
I also traveled abroad for my work.
okay. Where'd you sleep when you were in town?
When I was in town in Minneapolis, either at 3745 Wellington Lane North or other addresses.
Like with Scott Hartman ever?
With Scott, with people my girlfriend during the first part of 2008.
Okay. Do you have your driver's license on you?
I believe I do.
Does it still say PLMS?
It does.
Have you ever been stopped and had to show that thing?
In fact, I had. And
What happens?
I believe, man, was this? I don't recollect the date exactly. It probably would have been maybe a month after the RNC, so September, October. It was in Uptown. I think I had a tail light out, and the police officer stopped me and looked at it and kind of guffawed, but, didn't say anything else.
Didn't ask you where that was or anything?
I think it's obvious that what they were trying to do, which would have been incorrect, but yeah.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
I
Mr.
have
Hamilton,
no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Kunin.
Sure.
you're excused. Thank you.